Paint-grade project panels are offcuts used from lumber manufacturers to create solid wood panels for use in projects, hence the name. From the factory, these are typically sanded anywhere between 100 or 120 grit, so the first step is to sand your board with a pass of 150 grit, because there's no need to go any more coarse because it's already sanded at that. One pass back and forth against the grain overlapping a half the width of the pad, and one pass back and forth with the grain should do the trick. Now that we are sanded to 150, we can check the factory fills. It's called paint grade because these areas are filled from the factory to give you a paint ready surface. Inspect the board, make sure all the voids are filled. If they aren't checked at this stage, you risk applying coats of paint or stain only to realize that you have a void, because after you apply a finish is when you'll notice them. And going back to fix it takes longer and causes more issues for you. If you find voids, you want to fill them. Here you can see I have two voids that will show up if not attended to now. My filler of choice is the Mohawk Wood Putty. I like the Mohawk brand since it's stainable, water-based, sets up very hard, and is a creamy texture, creating quick, easy to sand fills. It is also relatively inexpensive. I recommend applying the filler at a 45-degree angle to the area you want to fill. In this case, the void is left to right, so I will apply it in a 10 o'clock or northwest direction to 4 o'clock or southwest direction. This ensures you are pushing the filler into the recess. Once you have the area filled, follow up with the grain, and that will remove the majority of the excess filler. This will make sanding much quicker and the fill less noticeable. So if you're going to paint your project panels, you want to be cautious of the knots. Knots can bleed through your paint, especially white, causing an unsightly issue after you're done finishing. So my secret trick is going to be using a black primer to cover the knot. That typically stops the bleed with the black iron oxide in the primer, but you have to make sure it is a black primer and not just regular black paint. So what you're looking for when you're spraying this is doing light coats. You don't want to oversaturate or make it too heavy, enough to dry very quickly, especially in the sun, and then spray another coat right over it. About 3 passes at the most. You don't want to overdo it because then it'll become sticky, it'll take longer to dry, and you can't move on to the priming process if you've overcoated it with the primer. And this goes with any of the rattle can spray paints. A little goes a long way with several thin coats versus one really heavy coat. So before we start, yes, this is as fast as I spray. This isn't sped up. I have sprayed outside for years, so therefore I've gotten used to the pattern of doing it. But I find this to be the fastest, easiest application method, a narrow bandwidth, and then just go at it. So I'll spray side to side with the grain. When you're doing primer or paint though, it really doesn't matter. and then here I'll go back and forth. It really depends on the feel of it for you and what you like the best, but I'm simply using the Harbor Freight green central pneumatic gun. It's like 25 bucks. Awesome gun for applying primer straight out of the can, no thinning needed. So one thing you can use is an inspection light. In this case, I use the sun. But what you'll notice is all these planer marks. This is the bottom side of the board. I didn't sand this one a lot with the 150 grit, but if you tilt it just right, you can get an idea of all the voids, all of the higher and lower spots in this. So in this case here, you can see this board is sanded with 150, but I have a couple of little low spots here and there. The grain for the most part is very even, and it'll look good whenever I spray the final coat on there. But if you want to inspect your piece before you put the paint on, this is the prime time to do it, to make sure everything has been addressed before you go to paint it. So since this is the bottom, I'm not going to worry about it, but here we will be spraying our deep navy blue color. Thanks for watching, everybody.